Hello and welcome to Drac Plays, where we start looking at video games and trying to help people get a little better in them and have a good time at the same time. I'm doing my second video here on monsters that are farmable, or sorry, rather on monsters that are good and relatively easy to obtain. So in our last video, we did monsters that were just straight up farmable. You could get them from just playing the game and doing the regular scenario dungeons, without having to rely too much on scrolls and other things to obtain. So this video, we're going to look at monsters that are still somewhat easy to obtain and that the food for them is farmable. So this video is going to be a lot longer than our last one, so strap yourselves in and we'll go ahead and get started here. So first off, let's pop in here. I'm going to jump over and I'm going to try and, last time I jumped around by element, this time I'm going to try and just jump around by monsters at the ones that are worth having and their food is farmable. So, let's see. First one on the list here. Let's look at our water hellhound, also known as Tark. Now, Tark is probably one of the best monsters in the game in terms of supporting a DPS team. I've seen a lot of players use him in their Giants team and in their Dragons team for when they get it down to a minute and a half runs. Now, the reason being is his first skill does the same as all of them. It does some life steal. Okay, not bad. Second skill does damage and scales with their attack speed and increases his attack speed when he uses it. Third skill, this is where he's awesome. So he attacks with two fellow allies. That means he attacks with this attack, which does a decent amount of damage, and then two other allies attack with him using their first skills. And you get all the perks of their first skills. If their first skills do a dot, then you get the dot here too, or break defense, break attack, whatever. So people will use him in a high DPS team, so that his third skill will give them extra attacks that can just completely destroy some bosses and some players in the game. So he's definitely worth having. You can pull him from unknown scrolls, from social summons. You can get him from the magic shop, and I could be wrong. I'm checking real quick, but I think you can also get him from a secret dungeon. 99% sure you can get him from a secret dungeon. Next, I'm gonna while I wait on that my computer to catch up here, I'm going to just jump over to the next one, which is the Dark Hellhound. Now, I really only mention him because he's somewhat decent damage as well, but it's worth noting that he is the fastest monster in the game. When he is awakened, he has 113 speed, but that's not the fastest, you might say, but it's his passive. His passive gives him another base 15 speed automatically. On things like leader skills, but for just base attack speed, that means he's starting the battle out with no runes at 128 speed. So that makes him probably the fastest monster in the game. Alright, and yes, Tark can be obtained through a secret dungeon. So that's it for the Hellhounds. The game gives you the fire one to start, but I don't like him at all, and he is farmable. So that's how you get the food for your others, is by farming him. Next, let's look at the warbears. Now in our last video we actually looked at both the water and the wind, which are both farmable. The fire is farmable as well, but I don't like him much. Right now though, we're going to talk about the dark warbear. Now he's obtainable from a secret dungeon, and then the food for him is farmable. So once you look at his awakened form Gurgo, you'll see why he's on my list. So same first skill as the others. He reduces their attack bar and it scales with his health. His second skill, which is really nice, it attacks all enemies by an amount based on his health. It doesn't play into his attack power at all, it's just his health. Hits everyone and breaks their attack power. It's awesome. There's no chance for it, so there's a chance for failure. No, you just got to pierce resistance and you got it. And the damage is 20% of his max HP. So you get him up to 30,000. And he's going to do 6,000 damage with this move before you figure in crit chance, crit damage, and defense and all that. But overall, though, it's just a really good move to have. And then his third move is just broken. So his third move deals damage according to his HP. It's 40% of his max HP, so almost half of his HP is going into this attack. It has a 70% bonus crit rate, so that means even if you have no crit runes at all, no crit substats, his crit chance on this move is 85% chance to crit. And if it crits, it stuns. So it is great for PvP. He's actually really good for Trial of Ascension because of his second skill and the fact that he can take someone out of the battle. This monster is just good all around. You can find food for him in the magic shop, you can get it from scrolls, you can farm it from scenario. He is just great to have. Alright, next on the list. So let's look at our buddy Cahool. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Cahool. He's alright. He's not great. But if you are having a hard time farming food for Bernard, or if you just don't have a place for Bernard, maybe because you don't like it that he's a wind monster, you can use Cahool as a backup. Reason being, his first skill has a chance to stun. It's a low chance, not great. Second skill, he does continuous damage and actually has a decent damage modifier in his second skill. And his third skill does exactly the same thing as Bernard's. Fills everyone's attack bar by 30% and increases speed for 2 turns. Now, he's not amazing. Not bad, though. And you can farm food for him from the scenarios as well. He also pops up in the magic shop and secret dungeons, and he can come from any scroll. Any unknown scroll in any social summon. Next, you got Konamiya. Konamiya is one that you can actually, I believe the game gives her to you for free. From one of the new quests that they just recently introduced. This monster is great. If you're looking for an early game healer, or even a mid or a late game healer that also removes all debuffs, she's good for that. So, first skill, of course, chance to stun. Second skill, she fills a target's attack bar to full and increases their attack power for 1 turn. So it gives them an extra turn and gives them an attack boost for that turn. And then her third skill removes all harmful effects and does a small heal across the party. Now, she's great for things like dragons, where the dragon is dropping all these continuous damage things on you. She's a reliable way to get rid of them. And then you can use her Resurge on herself, which basically gives her a free turn and reduces all of her cooldowns by 1 turn if you got nobody else that's worth resurging. It works out really well. And then, of course, you got Tion. Tion is one that the game gives you for free when you complete, I believe it's the second scenario dungeon. When you go all the way to the boss and win, you get one of these from Duran. She does the exact same thing as the first and second, can use her exactly the same way. And her third skill, she does the same first and second as Konamiya. Her third skill revives a dead ally and heals everyone by 20%. If no one is revived and you just use it as a heal, the cooldown is reduced by 2 turns. And of course you can use Resurge again. So the two of these birds actually can really support each other, as both of their heals are not that strong, but one revives and one cleanses. So they can work together fairly well if you got nobody else to fill the part. Oh, let's see here. Ooh, let's talk about the Harpoos. There's actually a lot of people completely disregard this one right here, the Wind Harpoo. I love this monster. In fact, I'm going to do a spotlight on this monster here eventually. She is good for things like Trial of Ascension. She's good for the Giant's Keep. And the reason being is her first skill hits twice. Each hit has a chance to reduce the target's attack power for 2 turns. When fully skilled, that's a 70% chance. So you got a pretty good chance of doing an attack break when she uses her first skill, which makes her a good candidate for things like Revenge Runes. Second skill actually does no damage at all, but it stuns the target and puts a continuous damage on them. Third one, this is the one that I love. It hits all enemies, does actually an okay amount of damage for a natural 2-star monster, and it reduces their attack bars by 40%. Now, I love putting her on focus runes with despair runes for this ability right here, because she reduces everyone's attack bars, and she has a chance to. Great. I love her. She was in my first Giants team, she was in my first Trial of Ascension team, and I actually used to use her quite a bit in Guild Wars to help give me extra turns. And then the other one here, everybody knows about Colleen. Even though some of the most advanced players in the game still use Colleen, even though she's a natural 2-star. The reason being is she is a healer and a buffer, and she weakens the target's attack. So first skill, same, chance to reduce attack. Second skill is throw sharp feathers, attack the enemy, and prevents them from recovering HP for 2 turns. Now I believe that this attack hits, I think it's random 2 to 4 times. So it could be 2 times, could be 3, could be 4. And then our third skill is a heal. It heals everyone by 25% and increases their attack power for 3 turns. So it makes her a healer and a buffer in one, which is really good for things like raids. A lot of people use her in dragons, but where she shines the most is in the Necropolis. Because since she has multi-attack on first skill, and multi-attack on second skill, and heal on third skill, she really helps bring the Lich down faster by breaking the Lich's shield and supporting your team. Let's see. Now here's one that I think it's overlooked a lot, and I tried him out as an experiment on an alt account that I had, and it actually worked out surprisingly well, and that's Chichi, the Wind Howl. Now, his base stats are crap, so you do need to get some semi-decent runes and be very sure of what you want out of him when you use him. But his first skill attacks the enemy and refills his attack bar by 30%, so whenever he uses his first skill, it makes it so his next turn comes faster. Second skill, you target an ally, and it removes all debuffs from both you and the ally, and then it heals him by 20% of his max HP. So, yeah, pretty decent. He can target himself too if there are no other allies, so you still get the heal off and still remove all the debuffs. His third skill actually has a really high damage ratio, which kind of makes up for the lack of his base stat power. It attacks all enemies, and it heals the whole party by half the damage inflicted. I built him crit attack, and he actually does a fairly good amount of damage. He actually was capable of solo farming some stages for me, and he does fairly decent in places like Guild Wars. For Kairos Dungeon, doesn't have a lot of application, but he's still good to have around. I used him in PvP too, and mine was only 5-star, and he could already solo some of the stages. So I imagine a 6-star Chichi that is runed properly could actually do a lot more than most people think. I actually plan on 6-starring mine eventually and trying him out just to see what he can do. Alright, let's pop over here to our friend the Fire Harpy. So the Fire Harpy is one, let's look at her awakened form, Lukasha. She is another one that is honestly not real multi-purpose, but where she really shines is in the Necropolis. Now she has a decent base attack, and all of her attacks, except for her first skill, are multi-hit. So she's great for bringing down the Lich's shield. First skill, attacks and weakens defense. Always good to have a defense break no matter what you're doing. Hurls Sharp Feathers. This one hits between 2 and 4 times, and it hits random, so if there's more than one enemy, it'll hit random enemies. And then this one attacks out randomly 6 times, so if there's multiple enemies, it'll hit multiple enemies. And each strike reduces their attack bar by 20%. Now this actually kind of makes her fun for PvP too. Since she can reduce the attack bar, she can give you a couple extra turns over your rivals. And like I said, she does a decent amount of damage. Her main application though is going to be for killing the Lich. Alright, let's see. Inugami. So we talked about the Wind Inugami and the Fire Inugami last time. This time I'm going to talk about the Light Inugami. Now this video again is monsters that are relatively easy to obtain, and light monsters typically are not, but he is. The reason being is he is obtainable in a secret dungeon. So Beledion, for his awakened form, or Bella for short, is honestly one of the best monsters in the game. And Com2Us even knows this, and they've even mentioned it in one of the beginning quests. They say if you can get this monster to do it. He's definitely worth it. So first skill, reduces the target's defense. No chance, just happens as long as it pierces resistance. Second skill, removes all the target's buffs. So he strips the buffs off the enemy. Third skill, fills everyone's attack bar by 30% and heals everyone by 30%. This monster has amazing utility because he reduces defense, he removes buffs, he heals the party, and he boosts their attack bar. This monster has it all. One of the best monsters in the game in terms of support. I definitely recommend getting him. You can farm the Wind in the Water one to skill him up later, or the Fire one. let's see, over here. Now we have the water one, Shylock. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this monster, but I think it's important to note that and put him on the list because when he's fully skilled and if he's got somewhat decent runes, this monster can actually solo Fayman for you. He can be a good farmer. Now, first skill has a chance to remove the buffs from a target. Second skill, it attacks it attacks the enemy 3 times each. Each attack has a 30% chance to reduce their attack bar, and it does more damage based on her HP. It actually does, I think, total 18% of her HP to the target. This one attacks all enemies and reduces their attack bars by 30%. Again, it's HP based. This one is, I think, 28% of her max HP. So you put, vampire runes on here, and this one can be a pretty decent farmer for you. Now, another one, I'm going to throw it up here just real briefly, but I'm not going to touch on it too much. Mantura is probably one of the best monsters in the game for Trial of Ascension, and he's also great for PvP. He's not easy to obtain. If you get him from a light dark scroll, absolutely build him. You can look him up and see what he does. Alright. So, now moving on. The Infernos. Now, I'm going to be honest, I love the Infernos. All of the Infernos, in my opinion, have some application, and the fire one is farmable, so you can skill them all up. I would say the best one out of them, though, is really our water Inferno, Purian. Now, the reason being is that Infernos are very high damage, very, very high damage, but they have very little health and almost no defense to speak of, so you got to kind of be careful how you use them. First skill, if they crit, they get a bonus 30% back to their attack bar, so their turn comes faster if they crit. Second skill, pierces an enemy it receives a 50% chance crit bonus, and it stuns the enemy for 1 turn when it crits. So base, if you have no crit runes at all, this skill has a 65% crit rate. Definitely worth using and having. His third skill fills the whole party's attack bar by 50%, which is the most out of any attack bar filler in the game, except for like the Garudas, which can fill the attack bar all the way. And it increases their crit rate for 3 turns, so it really boosts everyone's damage and gives you more turns. He's just amazing to have. And then the wind one, he's not bad either. So, same first skill. His second skill hits everyone and reduces their attack power. And then his third skill, now this ability, it hits the enemy, it reduces their attack power to 0, so it's great to use on enemies that are about to have a turn, because it means you just robbed them of a turn. And it always lands as a crushing hit. Now, quick note on crushing hits. Crushing hits do more damage than a normal hit, but are not capable of critical hits. So this guy, building him crit is great for his first skill, but it doesn't apply to his third skill at all. But it's still handy. I actually used him for a long time in PvP, just because it allowed me to manipulate the enemy's attack bars and move their turns around, so it kind of threw the synergy up for their teams. It worked great that way. The light and dark ones are decent as well. They're harder to get since they're from scrolls, though. Let's see. Over here to our werewolves. Now, the fire werewolf is farmable. Not really worth keeping, though. The water werewolf, though, Vigor, he is great. Now, notice he's got a base speed of 115, which is awesome. He also has a lot of health. And the reason being is he is a health-based monster. So his first skill does damage based on his attack. It's not that much. And it prevents them from healing for 1 turn. His second skill heals everyone by 15% and increases everyone's attack speed so you get more turns out of it. His third skill attacks 3 times. Each attack has a chance to reduce the target's defense, and this attack does more damage based on his max HP. So you can take this guy and just build him purely on HP. You can do HP crit if you want, rather than HP. And he will do a lot of damage with his third skill, and he becomes very difficult to kill. And then his leader skill is increases attack power by 21% during guild battles. So he's decent to have. The light werewolf and the dark werewolf are both really good as well, but you have to rely on scrolls to get them, so I'm not going to focus on them, but if you do get them, definitely keep them. Let's see, moving on. Okay, the Grim Reapers. The Wind Reaper is farmable. I don't care for him, though. Your Water Reaper, though, Hemos. Hemos is a good monster for dragons, and he's a good monster for Trial of Ascension. First skill, attacks the enemy with a scythe. If it kills the target, you get another turn. Second skill does no damage on its own, but it puts 2 dots on the target. So that's great for those long, drawn-out fights. Third skill reduces the target speed and for 3 turns and freezes them for 1 turn. So it's great for controlling the enemy's turns. A really good monster to have. Fire one is not bad either, to be honest. He's a lot more direct damage oriented than the Water is, but the Reapers are very squishy. And so with the Water Reaper, you want to build him kind of tanky, whereas the Fire one, he's there to kill stuff. So first skill, of course, target dies, he gets another turn. Second skill hits everyone and is guaranteed a crit if the target is under 30% HP. Second one. Third one is create a living hell for the enemies and inflict continuous damage and reduce their HP for 3 turns. Now the first and the third skill actually hit for the same amount of damage. It's just first one doesn't have any other effects added to it, and third one hits everyone and adds effects. So I've seen some people build him as a farmer using vampire runes, and I tried using him as that for a while, and he did okay, but I wasn't really super impressed with him, but still not a bad one to have. Alright, let's look at the living armors. Now the fire living armor is farmable, but he's kind of useless. The wind living armor, though, this guy, Copper, is amazing. So, first skill, chance to stun the target. If the target is under defense reduction, it also slows the target. Damage is based on his defense. Second skill, he swings the hammer, attacks all enemies, and he has a chance, 50% chance, to reduce the enemy's defense, and the damage scales with his defense. Third skill, he attacks the enemy, and if his defense is more than double the enemy's current defense, then he ignores their defense. Now this move has a huge ratio. It's like 760% of his defense. So if his defense is more than double the enemy's, that's going to go straight through to their health. You can hit the enemy for 30 to 40k damage with this guy easy, as long as he's got enough defense. So really got to get him some good defense substats, get him defense on his main stats, give him some crit damage, and he just goes to town on people. The Wind and the Dark living armors are both really good as well, but again, you got to get them from a scroll, so we're not going to focus on them here. Alright, let's see, that was living armor. So, the Minotauros, we talked about the Wind Minotauros last time. He's good. Let's look at the Lizardman, though. Now, the Water Lizardman is farmable, so you can get food for him. He's a little different. He is not meant to be a nuker, but he is good to help you sustain, especially if you put him on Despair Runes. So his first skill attacks twice. Each attack has a small chance to reduce their defense and inflict continuous damage, and it scales with his defense, so another defense-based monster. Second skill hits all enemies. Damage is based on defense. It puts a dot on them, and its damage increases based on the number of dots on them. Now, the ratio on this is not high, so you got to get like 6 or 7 debuffs on them for this move to really do enough damage to count for much. But he's a good defensive tank that also does dots, shreds defense. So he's good to have, especially if you put him on Despair Runes. Then he has a large chance of stunning people between his first and second skill. Now his third skill's fun. It's a passive. It reflects 10% of the damage inflicted to him back to them, and has a chance to provoke them so they have to attack him again with their first skill. Pretty decent to have all around. Alright, let's see, where are we now? Now we're getting into 4 stars. No 4-star is farmable. Oh, let's see. Did I really touch on everyone? I thought this video was going to take a lot longer than this. Wow. Let me just look through my list here real quick, make sure I got all the ones I wanted to talk about. Oh, I missed one. I did miss one. So, let's go back and look at him. I can't believe I missed him, because he is one of my favorite healers in the game. Let's look at Ricotta. Ricotta is the Wind Yeti. So the Water Yeti is farmable, so you can farm food for him. A lot of people overlook him as a healer, but he really actually has one of the more powerful heals in the game if he's set up with the right team. So, first skill, attacks 2 times. Each attack has a chance to reduce the enemy's attack speed for 1 turn. Second skill, attacks twice. Damage is based on his defense and has a chance to stun the target for a turn. Third skill, heals the whole party by the number of surviving allies. Now, the actual math on this is the heal is, when all allies are alive, is 40% of all allies' max HP. So everyone gets healed by 40% if he's at full health, and that drops with each with each ally that dies. So if he's the only one left, the heal is only like worth 10 to 15%. But if everyone's alive, it's 40%. So he does pretty good as a healer there. He actually also has a decent speed. It's over 100, so that's okay. So put some speed runes on him to supplement it, and he can keep him alive for a while. So let's look through this list one more time, make sure I got them all. Yeah, I think I got them all. So, nope, there was one other that I want to touch on. Now again, I'm not going to spend much time on this because he's actually a little harder to obtain unless you're lucky. And that is Camille's. Now Camille's is really good for Guild War. He also can be decent for Arena for one reason only, and he's actually kind of a weird hack in the game if you put him with the right party members. The reason being, his first and second, ignore him completely. Third skill, makes him unkillable for 3 turns, and he reflects 30% of the incoming damage to him for 3 turns. So, as long as you put some speed runes on him, you don't have to skill him up at all, you don't even have to level him up. You can leave him as a 3-star, which is what he usually is when you get him. Leave him as a 3-star, give him some good speed runes so he can go first, pop his third skill, and watch the enemy kill themselves trying to kill him. If you get him, keep him, consider yourself lucky. So, that's all I got for this video. Now, I have one other video in this Should I Keep It series that I want to do, and that one is monsters that are not farmable. Their food is not farmable, but they're still relatively easy to obtain. So, for all of you out there that love Shannon and are hating me right now for not touching on her yet, next video is for her. So, until then, thanks for stopping by, and we will see you next time at the corner.